Hey, this is Eric. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to talk to you today about what it's like to go to a conference. These kind of research conferences that we academics and researchers in our field go to occur frequently during the year, and there's many choices for us to attend these different conferences. Some of them are local, some of them are somewhere else in Australia, for example, or they can be international. I'm going to be going to an international conference next month, and I'll probably make a vlog post about that later on. This past week, however, I did get to go to Sydney, and for that one I attended this conference called the Australasian Society for Affective and Social Neuroscience. It's only been around a few years, and it's fairly small. This particular conference only had about 50 people or so at any given time. I think that was the maximum number I would expect that was there. That's a pretty small conference, and that's a certain class of conference that I actually enjoy because you can meet a lot of people this way. You can really get to know everybody who's speaking. And so for 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, last week, we met there in Parramatta, which is actually in the western suburbs of Sydney, and at this Marks Institute, which is part of the University of Western Sydney. Well, what did we do there? On day one, I went from my hotel by train and got to the conference site, and on day one it was just workshops, two kinds of workshops that were really optional to attend. There was a morning workshop on social robotics, and in the afternoon there was a workshop on open science that I was a co-leader for. In the morning, the social robotics workshop was led by Emily Cross and several of her colleagues from the University of Western Sydney and Macquarie University. Emily Cross is a colleague of mine, a friend. She does a lot of really interesting research on the social neuroscience of human-robotic interaction. And so she was talking about basically her whole approach to research and what different kinds of issues you deal with when you look at robotics and social neuroscience. She also, and her colleagues, brought some robots for us to interact with. So we had 4 different kinds of robots, I think, that were there. There was a Now, there was a Pepper, there was a couple other robots. You can see here, I'll show you what these robots look like a little bit.
Let's see, what are you looking for? Dragon, tell me when we're done.
Okay, follow me. I'm over here. Over here, Pepper. Look at me. Hi, Pepper. Over here. Over here.
He likes to keep the distance.
I'm not sure if something on the screen.
Seems like an accurate
Oh, Pepper. So much to learn.
So after that interaction with these robots, there was also some research presentations, and we had a lunch break. And then after lunch, we came back and we had this open science workshop that Alex Holcomb, who's a professor of psychology at Sydney University, he led the workshop, recruited me to help him out with it. It turns out that originally we were going to have 5 speakers, and 2 of the 5 speakers ended up either with COVID or the flu and couldn't be there. So really kind of at the last second found these things out. And so what I thought originally was going to be like a 10 or 15 minute presentation gradually filled into like a 40-minute presentation because I needed to fill the time. And I think the last time I heard about someone pulling out was the morning of the workshop. So as I walked from the train station to the conference site, I was trying to think, what am I going to put in this to fill up the time? And so I quickly, during lunch, found a bunch of slides to stick in and talk to more about open science issues. Open science, by the way, is sort of this whole movement that's been happening in psychology and many other scientific fields where we try to go for transparency, and we try to, like for instance, pre-register our hypotheses, our methods before we collect our data, so that we don't try to post hoc change everything around and present things as if they always happened that way. So anyway, we had about 10, 15 people who came to our workshop. They were mostly postgraduate students who were working on their PhDs and wanted to come and learn about open science. After our workshop was over, there was then a meet and greet thing for students and early career researchers. They also saw, I think, a presentation by an actor who talked to them about how to project their voices better during presentations and things. And then they had pizza and they got to hang out with each other and meet. It is really important that when you go to a conference like this that you get to do some networking. It's really a good chance. That's why we like to go to these things face to face, so we can talk to each other, find out about what we're doing, possibly start some new collaborations, or at least just be familiar about what this person's research is like. And so a lot of that was going on, and they usually have these sort of special events for postgraduate students and early career researchers to give them a chance away from the more senior academics. After I went back to my hotel room, I got an invitation from a colleague of mine here at UQ named Ada Kritikos, and Ada invited me to join her and two of her PhD students for dinner at a really excellent Greek restaurant. And so you can see here we're having our food and drinking some wine and getting to know each other better. I didn't really have a chance to talk to these two PhD students before, even though they work right on my floor. And it was really exciting to get to know them and learn more about their research. Second day, which was Thursday, I again took the train into the conference site, and this particular day was full of talks, different presentations by researchers about data that they collected, analyses they wanted to report, basically kinds of things that you haven't actually seen in print yet. They're sort of new projects, new data. A lot of these were PhD student projects, things that are part of their thesis, and this is like their first chance for a lot of these people to present their data in a face-to-face situation. Because of COVID, we just haven't had these kind of conferences, and maybe you could have done it on Zoom, but here was a much better opportunity for a lot of these people to do this. Now, we did have some students present their research on Zoom. We have some students who were back here in Brisbane because they either had COVID or had the flu, and so they had to do it that way. So it was a bit of a hybrid meeting, but for the most part, it was mostly face-to-face interactions, which was really good. We also had 4 keynote speakers. On this particular day, we had 2 keynote speakers. Keynote speakers are people who get like a whole hour to talk about, and they're usually more senior academics. The very first of these talks was Jessica Talbert, who's doing a future fellowship here at UQ, who does work on faces and how face processing occurs both in monkeys and in humans, and so she talked about her research for the first keynote address. There were also talks that only went for 5 minutes. These are called flash talks, where the student perhaps talked about their research for about 5 minutes, and then if you wanted to get more details, you could go out to their poster area where they had a poster presented and you could hear more about it. So that went on for most of that morning. And then finally, at the end of the day, we met up at a restaurant in Parramatta, a really fantastic Thai restaurant, as you can see here. We all sat at a big table. There were 25 of us, lots of chattering going on. It was really good. It was a really nice, fun, enjoyable evening. Plans for a chance again for us to do some more networking, just to get to know people better. I really enjoyed myself. Day 3. This day I did actually end up walking from my hotel, which was about 2.5 kilometers from the conference site. Got to walk through this wonderful park in Parramatta. Day 3 was very much like day 2. More talks, more keynotes. As you can see here, lots of different people presenting different things. We had lunchtime we had an AGM, that's an annual general meeting, in which we talked about the business of the society. The executive reported to us some of their plans, how the finances are going, what their plans are for next year. That went on for the rest of the afternoon, and we had more of the conference, and then finally at the end of the day there was some goodbyes, thank yous, some awards that were given. We learned that the conference is going to take place again next year in Adelaide. Don't know exactly when it will be, but we do know the location now. And at the end of that night, at the end of the day, I say around 5 o'clock, we all said goodbye to each other. I headed back to my hotel. I had the evening free, and so I went into Sydney and I went to the Vivid presentation, or the Vivid Festival, which you can see is all these lights lighting up Sydney. They project things up on the Opera House and other places. It was really fantastic. great time. I really enjoyed this conference. I would go to it again and again and again if I can. And this will contrast really nicely to the conference that I'll go to next month, which will be much bigger and be even more international. But that's all I have for now. If you have any questions, let me know. I'd be glad to answer them. You can leave a comment about it. Also, if you really like this video, I'm going to have many more vlogs like this coming up. I'm going to talk about different aspects of academics, things going on in social neuroscience, talk about research. So if you subscribe, you'll be able to keep up to this, and I hope to be able to keep posting these on a weekly basis. So that's all I have for now. Thank you, and goodbye.